Hey guys, welcome back to our channel where the Bible comes alive. Now, if you're a long-time viewer, then you've probably heard about the feast of Belshazzar, the foolish king who mocked God and got his kingdom destroyed because of it. If not, then let me introduce you to the story of the handwriting on the wall. In the book of Daniel, chapter 5, we're introduced to King Belshazzar, the last king of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, who was known for his wild parties and questionable decisions. Now, get this. One night he decided to throw a massive bash inviting 1,000 of his top nobles. You can picture it, right? A throne room decked out with gold and silver, servants everywhere, ready to serve, and the finest wine flowing freely. And as the night went on, Belshazzar got really drunk. And you know what they say, in vino veritas, which means in wine, there is truth. But also sometimes in wine, there is folly. And that's exactly what happened here. In a drunken stupor, Belshazzar had this crazy idea. He wanted to grab all the gold and silver cups that were taken from the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem years ago during the exile. He wanted them right there at his party. Can you imagine? Sacred vessels used by priests and kings in the temple were now being passed around at a pagan party. But that's exactly what happened. He took those cups and gave them to the king, his nobles, his wives, and his concubines. And everyone was drinking from them while praising the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. No respect for the God of Israel, no reverence for the sacred vessels. Just a bunch of people partying and celebrating their false gods. But guess what? As they were partying, suddenly some fingers appeared and started writing on the plaster wall near the lampstand in the palace. You can almost hear the music stop and see everyone staring in disbelief as the writing appeared. King Belshazzar was watching closely as the hand moved, and he wasn't happy. Imagine the shock, the fear, the confusion swirling through his mind as he saw the message being written. His face turned pale, his knees knocked together, and his legs buckled beneath him. Talk about a party foul, right? He was so afraid that he called for his wise men, the enchanters, astrologers, and diviners. These were the guys who were supposed to be the best at interpreting dreams and deciphering messages. So he gathered them and made a big announcement. He promised them a reward, saying whoever could read the writing and tell him what it meant would get some serious bling, a purple robe and a gold chain around his neck. Not only that, he'd become the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Can you imagine the pressure? Knowing that the fate of your kingdom rests on your ability to decipher some mysterious writing. But those fancy wise men, they couldn't figure it out. Nobody could read the writing or explain what it meant. Belshazzar was terrified and desperate. The party was over. There was no celebration left. All he could think about was that mysterious message on the wall. Then, just when things couldn't get any worse, enter Queen. She might have been trying to save the day, or maybe she just had a hunch. But she walked into the banquet hall and dropped a bomb. She told the king, "There's this guy in your kingdom who's totally in with the gods. Back in the day when your dad was in power, he was known for his wisdom, like straight-up prophet-level stuff. The king should call for Daniel and give him a chance to read the writing. He's the man for the job." Now, if you don't remember, Daniel was already a big deal in the Babylonian Empire. He was a Hebrew exile who rose to be a top advisor to the king, known for his wisdom, courage, and faith in God. He was also the guy who interpreted Nebuchadnezzar's dream about the huge statue, with its head of gold and various metals, that symbolized for empires. So when the queen suggested calling Daniel, it was like hitting the jackpot for Belshazzar. He immediately sent for Daniel and laid out the deal. If he could figure out the writing, he'd get the same amazing reward that those wise men were promised. But Daniel turned it down and politely declined the gifts. He said, "No thanks, I appreciate the offer, but I'm good. Besides, I can tell you what the writing means without even touching it. So watch and listen closely. I'm gonna give you the scoop straight from God himself." Daniel then launched into this epic speech about how God is in charge, how he humbles the proud and lifts up the humble. He reminded Belshazzar about his dad, Nebuchadnezzar, and how God had made him king. He talked about how Nebuchadnezzar went off the deep end and became arrogant after conquering Jerusalem and destroying the temple. God let him go wild for a while, but then he had a dream that made him realize just how much God was in control. Remember the famous line, "Is not your kingdom like the heavens? And you, are you not like the earth?" After that, God humbled him for 7 years, basically turning him into a regular Joe living with the animals. But after that, he came back to his senses and realized God was the boss. But young Belshazzar didn't get the memo. He and his buddies kept mocking God and serving idols instead of the true God. So God decided to show him who's really in charge. Daniel then dropped the ultimate truth bomb. He told Belshazzar that his kingdom was done. that God had counted his days and they were up. He said Belshazzar was being weighed on God's scales and found wanting. And guess what? His kingdom was getting split between the Medes and the Persians. And you won't believe this, but that very same night Belshazzar met his end. His kingdom was divided, and the Medes and Persians took over. Darius the Mede became the new ruler. Daniel's interpretation of the handwriting on the wall was spot on. It was a moment when God made it clear who was in charge. It was a reminder that no empire, no matter how powerful, can escape God's judgment when they mock him and his people. Now, why should we care about this story? What does it mean for us today? Well, first off, it shows that God isn't just hanging out in one place. He's involved in all human affairs, especially when it comes to nations and kings. He is not like some old man sitting on a cloud who doesn't care about what's happening down here. No, he's deeply concerned. Second, the story highlights that no one can hide from God's judgment. No matter how clever you think you are or how many wise men you hire, God's got a way of making himself known. When you mess with his people or mock his name, he'll make sure you pay for it. And finally, it reminds us that God is the God of second chances. Just think about Nebuchadnezzar. He went crazy, destroyed Jerusalem, and acted like a total jerk. But after he humbled himself and asked God for mercy, God forgave him and restored his sanity. God isn't just about punishment, he's also about forgiveness and restoration. But the key is to listen to him, change your ways, and turn away from your wicked deeds. Alright, my friends. Thank you for joining us as we uncover the incredible stories from the Bible. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do so and never miss out on these captivating narratives. We've got tons of exciting stories waiting for you. Also, if you got a friend who needs a little bit of faith boost or an awesome story to brighten their day, share this with them. You know, sharing is caring. Until next time, stay curious, stay faithful, and never stop exploring the wonders of the Bible. Take care.